welcome to the Mindset Think Tank, where we explore the power of mindset to inspire resilience, creativity, and growth. I am your host, Tina Dawson, and I thank you for tuning in. Today, we are diving into the world of strategic leadership and financial mastery with a guest whose expertise has transformed multi-billion dollar organizations. Rasheed Marshall is a seasoned financial planning and business optimization leader with a proven track record in boosting profitability, streamlining operations, and mentoring high-level teams. From crafting innovative pricing strategies to driving cost-saving initiatives, Rasheed knows how to turn numbers into actionable insights. Get ready for a masterclass in financial leadership that will inspire you to lead with vision, strategy, and impact. Before I bring him on, I'm going to ask that you like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be notified when new content becomes available. So make sure you hit the bell and the subscribe button. Help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Mr. Rasheed Marshall.
Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for saying yes to being on the show and sharing your perspective on this particular topic.
My pleasure.
How's the family? Is everybody doing well?
Everybody's doing well. Just studying and doing homework and preparing for work tomorrow. That's our regular routine around this time.
Regular routine. So I totally understand that. But I know it's a busy day for you with having a family. So I thank you so much for taking time out to do this interview with me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I have known you for a while, but I would like the viewers to get to know a little bit about you before we start on the topic. So can you take time out to share a little bit about yourself with the viewers?
Sure. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Spent some time in Austin, Texas, and then went on to New York, where I went to college at Syracuse University. Excuse me. And upon graduation, I came down to Atlanta to pursue a career in accounting at Hewlett Packard. And the rest is history. It just took off from there.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So Syracuse University. See, I learned something new about people every time I do this show. Didn't know that.
I went to Syracuse, but then I also went to Clark Atlanta University to get my MBA here in Atlanta. So PWI and HBCU.
Okay, yeah, right. I was going to say, so now that you got your MBA from the Atlanta AU Center, Atlanta has a special place in your heart.
Yes. Had a great experience there.
All right. Well, with your career span significant achievements across financial planning, strategic pricing, and operational efficiency, can you share what initially drew you to this field and what has kept you passionate about it over the years?
Well, originally I came to Syracuse to be a social worker, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes. And then because I felt like I could identify with a lot of the stories that I would hear based upon how I grew up. I grew up in a tough part of DC, in Southeast, and my mother and her family was very different from my father's family. So my father's family grew up in an area that they considered to be uptown, the Northeast Washington, D.C. area. But my mother, she grew up in the rougher part of town. So all of the drug users and drug dealers and numbers runners and killers and people in and out of jail, I saw that every day right in my own family. So that was one of the things that drew me to a career in social work. You know, a lot of my friends were in and out of jail and getting killed, and that was what led me to being sent to Austin to live with my father. So he was in city government, and his job took off. He started off working for Mayor Barry, and it took him to Austin, Texas, to be assistant city manager out there. So my mom just decided one day that she was going to send me to Texas. Just packed up all my stuff, picked me up from my high school, no warning, took me straight to the airport my junior year of high school.
Wow.
She pretty much saved my life doing that, though, because in doing that, I got serious about school. I never had bad grades. Just had, you know, the wrong circle of friends, and I mean, that was all I knew. Those are the people that were in my neighborhood and that I grew up with, and my family. So I was always in the honors classes. It's just that I would get in trouble and from association, so to speak. You know, the behavior and the work habits, grades could use some improvement, let's say.
Yeah.
So all of that changed when I got to Texas, and the deal was for me to make the honor roll to be able to get back to graduate in D.C. with my friends going to senior trip. So all of that being said, in doing so, that's how I got accepted to Syracuse. It never would have happened had I not got sent to Texas.
Wow.
So I went to Syracuse. In fact, I actually chose Syracuse over Georgetown University. I got accepted to Georgetown, Syracuse, University of Texas in Austin. But I wanted to go to Syracuse because both my parents went there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I pretty much didn't have a choice. They said I could apply wherever I wanted to. But once that Syracuse acceptance came, it was a done deal. If they were paying for it, I was going to SU. So I got accepted on a social work scholarship, and I knew right off that that wasn't what I was going to be doing, because I feared that I would bring that to the house with me. All those different stories and stuff dealing with children and domestic violence. That wasn't going to be something that I was going to be able to leave at the job. So I changed to management my my sophomore year. I had to transfer into the business school, Whitman Business School. You had to have a 3.5 to transfer in. So I did that, and you know, based upon everything that I had learned from my dad, I knew that accounting was going to be the path that I wanted to take in business.
Yeah.
So I got an internship there with Carrier Corporation. And then when I came home to DC, I started working with Waste Management, trash company. And that was a great experience because, you know, they required me to get on the trucks and ride, you know, in the wee hours of the morning throughout DC, Maryland, and Virginia with the drivers picking up trash, because they, you know, they had the methodology that you should learn everything from the ground up. And I appreciate that experience because that's some of the same things that I do today at Amazon. I have to go through the whole pick process, the pack process, and learn everything about what's behind the numbers.
Right.
And I think that's what the key is to financial literacy and overcoming the fear of numbers, is actually knowing what's behind the numbers and making them real.
Yeah, it gives you more clarity.
Yes.
Yeah, it gives you more clarity. And you know, your mother making that sacrifice because she understood that we're all product of our environments. And you know, no matter how much you try to escape it, if you're in it, it just becomes a part of you. So, you know, thankfully she sent you with your dad. And how could you not follow in this field? When you said he used to work for Mary Berry and then all the other stuff he used to do, again, you're a product of your environment. And I've got family members that have been like parole officers and all of this, and the stories that I have heard from them, bringing it home, have to look it over your shoulder, all types of stuff, being in those type of industries. So I totally understand that, because if you're a compassionate and caring person, you know, you're going to carry some of that home. So yeah. It seems like it's just the right field, because ever since I've known you, you've been the man behind the numbers.
Well, thank you. I mean, you know, it's one of those things where it just kind of comes natural. I never really shied away from numbers. I did well in math, but it was something that I always, volunteered to do. Well, let me be the numbers person. If,
Right.
in any organization, I always wanted to be the treasurer. Um, fraternities, different uh, professional organizations, NABA, National Black MBA. I always, ended up being the treasurer, and it just came natural to me, and it was something that I enjoyed.
Right. So that's how you know you're on the right track and you're doing the right
Yes,
thing, is because it's not a chore.
right. It's something that I would do for free.
Right.
It's something that I enjoy, teaching people. Even now, I still go back to Clark and work with Dr. Kimbrough. He was one of my professors, and I take pride in going back and picking a mentor out of the incoming business class every year
Oh,
and
wow.
kind of guiding them through business and accounting and finding internships and navigating through those tough courses. Because had I not had people to do that for me, I probably wouldn't have stuck with it.
Right. Correct. And you're trying to, reach back and help someone else.
Absolutely, because what I've learned in working in these corporations and particularly public accounting, there's not a lot of us. When I say us, I mean African Americans in
Mm-hmm.
general. But when
Mm-hmm.
you talk about African American men, it's the numbers get really small. Like typically, even when I was in school, I would be in a lecture hall of 200 or 300 students,
Mm-hmm.
and it would just be maybe 5 blacks. Out of the 5 blacks, maybe
Oh, wow.
1 or 2 black males, and it was like
Mm.
that throughout the whole time I was at Syracuse.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's what made me want to go to an HBCU to get my MBA. I knew I wanted to stick with, numbers. So I did my MBA in finance. You could only do marketing or finance at the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably different now, but I chose finance, and I had the opportunity to go to Emory, Georgia State, or Clark. But the
Okay.
dean at the time, Dean Ed Davis, he lived in my dad's subdivision, and he it didn't take him long to talk me into going to Clark Atlanta,
Mm.
because I was still working at the time, so I was looking for a competitive top 20 MBA school,
Mm-hmm.
with a good program, uh, that would allow me to still work.
Right.
So at the time, I was working for the city of Atlanta in
Mm-hmm.
Department of Finance. I was a grant accounting manager,
Mm.
and this was under Shirley Franklin,
Okay.
and that was a good path for me. My dad actually, what brought us to Atlanta was the fact that he got an offer when he was in Austin to
Mm-hmm.
come to Atlanta to help bring the Olympics to Atlanta and to work under
Oh,
Mayor
wow.
Campbell. So when he came here and was working under Mayor Campbell as city manager of Atlanta, that's what, made Atlanta one of my top choices out of school.
Okay.
That and wanting to work for Hewlett Packard. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it just
Yeah,
worked out.
it runs deep. You know what? I think you're only as good as your network, and your net worth is connected to your network. Yeah, and being resourceful, right? I think that those are key to your journey through life, is making those relationships,
Absolutely.
and doing right by those relationships
Yes.
so that they can lead you to other places. Now, one thing that you did mention that I want you to elaborate on a little bit is that you were saying that when you worked for Waste Management, they had you to do OJT, right, on job training,
Yes.
and so that you could totally understand the totality of the company and what is really behind the numbers, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I want you to expound on that, because as me being a small business, that's something that I learned, right? I learned how to value money and money in my business when understanding the numbers and how it works. You can just do business, whether it's small or large. You can do business as usual, but unless you have someone to sit you down and really understand the numbers, I think you look at the trajectory of your business, or you look at things totally different when somebody teaches you that. And I think that's so important that, sometimes just, I've been with people, used to work at Emory, and I've seen people not really totally understand or value whether we need to get another employee or not. There's a lot behind that. You just don't make that decision, right? Or, whether or not we need to scale at the time that we need to scale, right? There's a lot of information that you can get from your data that can tell you which way you need to go. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, you hit on a great point. So the number one thing that I would say someone that's considering a career in finance and accounting should do is be able to communicate with people at all levels, because that is going to help you in understanding the numbers.
Okay.
Some people just really like numbers, but some people really have to understand what's behind the numbers. And that's the type of person I am,
Yeah.
So when I'm in these organizations, I'm meeting people from the cleaning people to the people in the cafeteria to the people on the assembly line. In many cases, like in my current role at Amazon, I'm actually having to roll up my sleeves and do these different processes in Amazon. So when I'm going to these different sites, they don't know that I'm the financial guy, the CFO for that particular fulfillment center. They think that I'm a new guy on the line. And I like that. I appreciate that because I get to know them. I get to really understand their jobs. They tell me the things that they do and don't like. And it's like I'm undercover boss. I'm actually able to.
I'm getting ready to say, I love that show.
I'm in a role where I can make the change, When I'm in, these different distribution centers and people are complaining about being overworked, or they're working on an old machine, or they need new supplies to decant, to break down the inventory that's coming in from third-party vendors. I can make the call on the budget to say, hey, we need more labor. We need to send home labor. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but because that's usually typically without pay. We need to, we can't speed up the machines, but we need to speed up the processes prior to putting the inventory on the machines. Because in my role, it's about juggling volume, capacity, headcount, and labor. And it's the same thing from company to company. I mean, even when I was at Waste Management that you touched on, it was the same thing. We were talking about waste and co-mingled paper, and how to dispose of it or recycle it. So it all had to do with the volume and the number of, units coming in, units being trash in that sense, and the amount of labor that we needed to dispose of it or to pack it, or how many trucks we needed out, throughout the different routes throughout the DMV area to get it to the different trash centers and recycling centers. So that's the most important thing that I think would drive, being able to be successful in financial analysis, really understanding the people and what's behind the numbers, not just a line item on a paper, but what drives that. Because when you run into issues and you have to advise somebody, you have to know root cause, right? You have to know the root cause of why did that number go down? Why is it different year over year? Why was there an increase? Why was there degradation in that particular line item, particularly when you're talking about a company like Amazon? Because the people that I'm advising, they've been doing this a very long time. I'm just coming in the door telling them how to, run a fulfillment center that's dealing with millions of units, hundreds of thousands of units a week, so you really got to understand what's going on to be able to advise somebody at that level, or they won't take you seriously, particularly when everybody doesn't look like you.
Correct. And then when you work on the floor with the people, I love the show Undercover Boss, and I wish more companies did that. In these in those episodes, the person or the owner who's going undercover really wants to get to the bottom line, right? They see the drop or decline in numbers, or they see the uptick in complaints, and in order to get to the bottom of it, if you want different outcomes, you got to do something different, right? So
Yes.
that seems like that's the last thing they even thought about is let me just go undercover because everybody doesn't know who I am, right?
Right.
And I think you are able to, really bond with the people at the bottom because sometimes in leadership, it's people making helicopter decisions without talking to the people who have the boots on the ground, right? And so your position gets you into you really have a unique position the way you're going about it, right? Because
Yes.
you're not just listening to the top or listening to the bottom. You're kind of like in the middle. So you have a view from a totally different perspective, and you can talk to the top about the bottom because you were there. So
Yes.
that is awesome. So can you talk about your position, a little bit about your position at Amazon? And you talked about a little bit about what you do, but tell the viewers and listeners about your position.
So my responsibility is essentially to be the CFO, the financial person responsible for between 3 and 5,000 employees in those processes at those two facilities.
Okay.
I'm responsible for two facilities, and I'm the right hand man for the general manager. And my support people are all the senior operations managers that report up to the general manager.
Okay, got
So
it.
you have different processes at Amazon. You have the decant process, which is the process where when you order something, if it's coming from a third party vendor, it's coming in on a truck to one of these. I'm sure you've seen these fulfillment centers all over Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's coming to a fulfillment center, and they have to open it up, decant it, and let's say it's 20 boxes of shoes from Nike. So they have to open it up and they have to do what they call the induct process, which means they have to scan all of those boxes in. Okay. Then they have to do what's called the pick process, which is they have to go on look at a screen and basically fulfill an order that's been placed wherever that the distribution center ships to, and put it into a tote, which is basically a yellow tray.
Okay.
Somebody else is going to receive that yellow tote and put it into a gray bin to actually match the order of where it's going to. I live in Southwest Atlanta, so let's say somebody in Southwest Atlanta ordered a pair of shoes, a pair of sneakers, and a sweatsuit and a hat.
Okay.
So one of those trays is going to have the hat, one is going to have the shoes, one is going to have the sweatsuit. So that's what I'm having to do. I'm having to work in these different areas and do an assessment and say, in the time that I was helping out during peak, because this is our peak time. Peak is between Thanksgiving, from Black Friday all the way to Christmas Eve. So this is our busiest time. We're working 11 hours a day, sometimes 5 days a week, definitely on the weekends, right? So what's happening is people that are in management are also out on the line doing the work that the assembly line associates would typically do, right?
Okay.
So they don't know, like I was saying, if I'm an associate from another branch, somebody that's being trained or what. The only time they would know, because at these facilities, we don't wear uniforms. We definitely don't wear any suits because it's a warehouse, right? So everybody has on sweatsuits, t-shirts, Crocs, sneakers, right? Protective gear. So you don't know one person from the other, but the giveaway is during this time of year, we're giving out meals, we're giving out candy, we're giving out incentives, we're giving away TVs and gifts at raffles. That's when they see me handing out stuff and they realize, oh,
he's leadership.
He's not one of us. Right? But other than that, they would never know because I'm doing what they do. We have to pitch in. And then when I'm in doing so, that's when I'm looking around and saying, oh, yeah, that's a problem. That robot is not moving fast enough. Oh, we got people sitting around. We have too much labor. It doesn't match the volume or the capacity that we're trying to meet. So then I switch hats. I go into the main office, is what they call it. The general manager is asking me, right, specifically, what do I need to change to meet my numbers?
Right.
So then I look at my reporting and I say, well, if you look at, because every morning we have what's called a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
A deep dive, because Amazon is about total change. That's why they're so successful.
Okay.
Constant change, right? So every day we're looking to say, what did we do yesterday that we can improve upon today? What did we do last week that we can change to do better this coming week? We even compare last year to this year, right?
Mm.
So that's my job, to do that analysis and say, hey, our labor count, when I look at the labor times the rate, is too high. We got too many people sitting around. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
match the volume that we're forecasting for this coming week. The shipment
Right.
is saying that we're going to have 30,000 units. We have labor that's for 50,000 units. What are we doing with that extra 20,000? So we need
Mm.
to unfortunately send some of these people home without pay.
Wow.
The flip of that could be we under budgeted, and based upon the forecast, we only have labor that would be optimal for 50,000 units coming in.
And you
Right.
right.
So
Right.
we need to have offer some mandatory or voluntary
Mm-hmm.
excuse me uh, overtime.
Overtime.
So
Yeah.
as people are on the line and getting off, ask them do they want to come in this weekend and work another 11 hours.
Right.
Maybe you can work from 6 to 6 on Saturday, 6 to 6 on Sunday, 6 to 6 on Thanksgiving, and we give you double time
So
because
your
of the holiday.
labor has to match your volume.
Absolutely,
Has to
absolutely.
match your volume. Yeah, I think Amazon. First of all, thank you for sharing that process, because on our end, the only thing we know is we click a couple of buttons and we make a payment, and then in 2 days or a day or the next day, depending on what the service is, we get our package, and the driver is kind of happy. I haven't seen a mad driver, an unpleasant Amazon driver yet, but
Oh,
they
they're not
get
going to
it
be at
on there.
Amazon. They get paid very well and benefits.
Yeah, I heard. But there's a lot to the process of us getting our package.
Yes.
And as being a small business owner, I can relate to that on a smaller scale, right? Because
Yes.
people think that they place an order, and then 24 hours they're asking you where's the tracking number, and you try to put in there that it's 3 to 7 business days before the ship. Some people don't read, but the thing that I'm trying to get to is that it's a process. Everything is a process, and so your job is to manage it, um, tied to the financials, to see where you can. And that's good to know that. Amazon, I did not know that they are very quick to review, like you said, the day before, and see how they can be better the next day. And I appreciate that, because I think I will start implementing that in my business. Before I shut down for the day, go over that day and see, what can I do better the next day. And sometimes, when you're in a small business, it's either the business is working you or you're working the business. And then sometimes you're in between, right? But
Yes.
I've learned over the last couple of years that you just have to stop the train, and you have to analyze your business, right? And then you have to analyze your financials, because if the volume doesn't match the finances, something's off. And I really believe that you can find out what's going on if you look at the numbers.
Yep. And if you're really savvy, see, this is the misperception people have. A
This is
lot of
good. I like
people,
this.
a
Good
lot of
interview.
people, a lot of people use the words budgeting and
Mhm.
forecasting synonymously, and they're not.
Okay, let's define both of them.
So a budget is something that you put together for a period of time.
Okay.
So you may put together a budget for the week. You know,
Okay.
let me make sure I have enough to put gas in my car and to eat and to, do XYZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forecasting is something that you're doing based upon historical data, maybe
Okay.
based upon previous budgets that you put together, and how they fared against your actuals. Forecasting is something that you're doing for years down the line.
Okay.
So a forecast is something more like, an example of a forecast would be like was what a financial planner puts together for you for your life insurance.
Okay, or retirement.
Or retirement. So they're talking
Okay.
about years and years down the road, what you need to do now,
Okay.
versus a budget that you will put together maybe for your groceries or your household expenses.
Okay. But with that forecast, should you review it monthly, even though it's a forecast for the future? How often should you look at that so that you can make adjustments along the way?
You definitely need to look at your forecast. It's not a one and done.
Okay.
You can't plan for a year ahead and just leave it like that, because things are constantly changing.
Right.
So essentially, what's happening, what I was describing I was about to say Hewlett Packard, because we did the same thing here.
Amazon.
What's happening at Amazon is we're forecasting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forecasting what needs to happen for next year's spending.
Okay.
Based upon different things that are happening this year, increase in volume, overstaffing, understaffing, capacity, labor changes, strikes, all kind
Yeah.
of things, so that we can plan for 2025, 2026, based on historical data.
Mm-hmm.
So the budget is just, we get a bucket of money from corporate in Seattle that says, this is how much you can spend at this facility. And then it's up to me to work with the general manager to say, okay, we got this bucket of money. This is how much we can spend on uniforms. This is how much we can spend to give out meals
Okay.
for the holiday. This is how much we could spend on improvements to equipment.
Right.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. Let's see. I had one that was and I lost it. Let's see. Okay. What are some best practices for businesses to manage cash flow effectively while preparing for unexpected challenges?
I would say you always have to have a cushion. You always have to have reserves, because if you stick to that budget that tightly and you
Mm.
expect everything, every penny to be and every dime to be spent exactly per that budget, even if it's based upon historical data, you're going to
Right.
always fall short, because things change.
Yeah.
Even in your personal spending, you always should have 3 to 6 months of salary put away, because things will happen. You may get laid off, things that are unforeseen. People get hurt, people get sick. So with these companies, people quit. Equipment breaks. You got to
Mm-hmm.
buy new equipment. You got to hire new employees. All types of things happen. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah. Life be life and personal and on corporate level, don't it?
Yes, always have
Unexpected
reserves.
challenges. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, emergency reserves is key to success.
You've mentored high performing teams and driven cross functional collaboration. What's your leadership philosophy and how do you inspire your teams to excel?
One of the things that I appreciate is the fact that I've had some good managers that
Mhm.
did not micromanage me. I've had some bad
Oh,
ones, but I've had some that took me under their wing more like a sponsor. So typically that's my management style. I typically like to allow people to form a think tank,
mm,
because I think that all opinions and ideas are noteworthy.
that's
Everybody has value to add to the goal.
mm-hmm.
A lot of times, that's why I was saying it's so important to communicate and get to know people all the way from the floor to the top. You
Yes.
know, even in my personal life, I do that. I have friends that didn't even finish high school that are
Mm-hmm.
geniuses,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have friends that are millionaires. You know, so it's very important to have a network, a professional network of people from all over, just like it's very important in the workplace to
Mm-hmm.
have opinions and input from all levels.
Right.
This top down approach doesn't always work. Sometimes you got
No,
to have a
it
bottom up
doesn't.
approach.
It
because
doesn't.
they're the ones on the ground that knows what's happening and what needs to be changed. That's why it's so key in this scenario that I'm describing, where I'm on the floor talking to people, because people don't always respond honestly to surveys. They're scared. You know, you ask them, how's everything going? Fine. Then in the break room, boy,
Yeah.
I'm tired of this. You know, they're
Yeah.
working us to death. I need a raise. I'm about to quit.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations I need to hear,
Right.
so that when the general manager asks me how to allocate the budget, I say, well, maybe we should take another look at salaries of the or the hourly employee wages.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
you get the truth. You get the truth in those situations, and sometimes they don't fill out the survey because they don't think their opinion matters. You
exactly.
know, and when I think you get the best out of the employee when you show them that you care and that their voice is valuable. They're the ones that's doing the job, you know, for
Yep.
40 hours a week. And you know, if you bring them in as a team player, just by allowing them to give the perspective. Sometimes I've learned this though, Rasheed. Sometimes people don't want you to fix it or do exactly what they're saying. Sometimes people just want to be heard.
Yes.
And it is so powerful to allow people to have their voices, especially with their employees, right? And then if they go on this tangent about, I don't understand, if you just educate them about what's going on this side of the equation, then they're like, oh, I get that, right? So
Right.
you have to bring them in as a team player. And I think listening to them is so valuable.
Yes. You know, a lot of people are drawn to these roles by money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Money's good, but I mean that at the end of the day, what's the point of making a lot of money if you don't feel valued?
Right.
You know, I would make
Yeah.
I would rather make okay money and feel like, you know, I'm coming to an organization where I'm making a change, and my opinions are valued, and I can see,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my input move throughout the organization, versus a position where they just pay me to do what they say,
Right.
to be a yes man.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we were talking about undercover boss. At the end, when they reward those people for, you know, coming up with these bright ideas to move the company forward,
Yes.
you know, they get rewarded for it. And what does that do with to that person's loyalty with the company? It just makes a big difference.
Yes.
What's been the most rewarding experience in guiding a team through a challenging financial project or transition?
I would say the most rewarding example I could think of
Mm-hmm.
has been to lead a team of individuals right out of college,
Oh, okay.
where, you know, they really only have book knowledge and no experience.
Mm,
And then, you know, working with them, and then years later seeing those same individuals become directors, you know,
wow.
directors and leading departments, and really understanding, you know, what I was trying to get them to understand when they were right out of school,
Right.
where I
Right.
got pushed back, and then they come back and they thank me and they say, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. It's 10 years later, but now I get it because I'm managing a team.
Yeah, book knowledge is only your foundation, right? And
It'll
I
get you
tell
in the door.
people you
Yep.
can go to school and you can learn about, let's just say, accounting, right? But that's generic until you apply that in Hewlett Packard, Waste Management, Amazon, AT&T, and both all four of those companies, you apply your knowledge differently. Right. And I just
Yes.
had someone on not too long ago. I think my last interview was about code switching and the power of code switching and understanding that you have to be adaptable in different environments, right? And understand that it's not just one end all be all, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg that you got that degree. But when you have to apply it, you can't say I did this at Emory and now I'm coming over here to AT&T. They're two totally different entities. And you have to be adaptable, be able to apply that information. So that is great that you did that and that people can come back. They have to learn. They
Thank
have
you.
to learn. And I can only tell you, but life will teach you.
Yes. See, a lot of people don't really look at it the same as how I look at it. I look at all this stuff as business.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter if you are selling lemonade, selling printers for Hewlett Packard, selling consulting services in public accounting, or shipping packages. At the end of the day, it's all business.
That's right.
If you understand business and you can apply real life transactions to business, it's just a matter of understanding the system.
Yes.
You know, is it going to be easy? No. But if you can apply it to, at least for me, if I can apply it to real life, you know, like back when people were writing checks,
They
that's how I
still
understood.
do. They still write checks.
Yeah, they do. Before PayPal and Cash App,
Right.
you know, and Zelle. That's the way I understood statement of cash flows, balance sheet, income statement.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I was able to understand, because I didn't understand debits and credits. Right. I had to force myself to understand it by making it applicable to checks and
Right. Okay.
real life transactions. You know, some legal and some illegal, but as long as I was able to apply it to something that I knew
All business.
or had seen, it helped me get good grades on tests, and ultimately I was able to make it into these companies and convince people in interviews that I knew what I was talking about.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And now I've been doing it 30 years, and I guess I do know what I'm talking about after all.
Yeah. And you're passionate about it, right? And the other thing is that you want to share the knowledge that you have, which is key. But if I want to make sure that the listeners and the viewers, we want to remind them to like and share and to subscribe to the YouTube channel. But this is valuable information because it's all about the numbers. You don't know how well your business is doing, is not doing, where you need to change. It's all about the numbers. So if you can partner with someone that can help you understand your numbers, your business is going to grow. But you can't scale either without knowing your numbers.
Yes.
And even if you're a small business, you still need to forecast. You still need a budget, but you still need to forecast. Because the one thing I thought about too is, if say, like, for what I do, if there's certain things that are not selling, they're not high volume, I don't need to keep them. I don't need to hold on to that inventory, right? So you need to discount it, get it out, but then figure out what is another hot seller, and then you keep more of that, where you don't really understand what I just said if you don't look at the numbers.
Right.
So one thing I did get 2 years ago, my bookkeeper had me, well, he installed it, was an inventory management system. Awesome. And I was doing everything on Excel and counting manually. And when my kids would act up, I would make them count inventory. And that's probably why they would not like to work for me or work with me at all. Because they were like, oh, I got to count inventory on Sunday. But now I've got an inventory management system. So, different softwares that you can actually implement in your business will actually help you with some of the things. But again, junk in, junk out. So,
yep.
Yeah.
That is definitely something that is key to running your own business. Understanding the right amount of inventory and understanding what the optimal price point is, because you don't want to price yourself out of the market.
That's right.
We're all in the business of making money.
That's
because
right.
I have my own business too. But at the same time, you don't want to overprice things so that you don't get anybody to buy from you.
Right.
And you don't want to make it too cheap just so that everybody's happy and you're not making any money. You got to
Yeah.
sell 2-3 times as much inventory to make make a decent profit.
Yeah. And if
What's
you sell it too low, then you're messing up the market value of the item. So again, there's a lot that goes into it. You mentioned that you have your own company, Marshall Consulting LLC. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So in these different roles, in building relationships, I often wondered, why can't I do this on my own? So I stepped out on faith about 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, I was kind of doing it under my own name previously. I would do people's taxes, I would do people's bookkeeping, some financial analysis, some financial software implementation, but I got serious about it when I found out that, hey, I could actually do this on my own and be successful, So with Marshall Consulting, I took my wife's advice because she was already doing it.
Okay.
And decided to get a government contract. Because with the government, once you get a government contract and you make a good first impression, those contracts can last forever.
Yeah.
And they can lead to other contracts. So I got a contract as a subcontractor under a prime that had a relationship with a accounting firm in the Midwest.
Okay.
And she had some audit work that she wanted me to do for the Department of Transportation for this particular city government. So, it was something that was not really in my wheelhouse. So I had to do some research. It was dealing with bonds and amortization, stuff that people don't really want to deal with.
Right.
And I did research on it and, reached out to people in my network that did this for city governments. And
resourceful.
Got a good understanding of it, and submitted the RFP and got the work, and they were pleased, and they made me a repeat client.
Wow.
Yep. So
wow.
Well, they're my repeat client.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Correct.
And it's working out. So just stuff like that. Really being able to apply the stuff that I've learned at all these different companies and firms to something that can be profitable for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with something I enjoy, because I mean, there's all kind of ways out here to make money. There's people that are investing in, franchises and, uh, all kind of things out here. But for me, it just made more sense to do something that I enjoy and that I'm really familiar with. If it's dealing with numbers, finance, accounting, tax, bookkeeping, I pretty much can figure it out, or someone in my network can figure it out and help me get up to speed on it. So I think that's what I'm going to continue to do on as my side business.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you said that because next year the Mindset Think Tank is going to do some workshops, and I'm going to ask you to come in and give them some general information. And I know about the prime and the subprime, and I know a little bit. I've got a local governmental contract.
Okay.
And it's a lot of work. And again, you find though that you don't know, that's why you need to have your network, right? Because
yes,
you can lean on those that do know when you don't know, and vice versa.
Yes.
And so that's why it's so important to be resourceful and have a network that you can tap into. But yeah, what you just talked about is very valuable. And I'm gonna ask you to come and teach some classes in the workshop, because people need to know that whether you have a small, middle, or large company with dealing with different types of employee sizes, this is still information that you need, and the information that you gave on this interview can work for anybody. That's why I was
Absolutely.
trying to relate it to me.
I would love to do something like that.
Yeah. So I was trying to relate it to me because I'm in a small pond, but I'm kind of consistent, and I would love to be a medium or a big pond.
Right.
and these are some things you need to know. But a lot of people run from the numbers, and
Yes.
you have to um, learn it. You're not going to be successful if you don't, right? I know that when at the beginning of the year, one of my for True Blue Designs, one of the things that happened big at the beginning of the year, I was working on the end of the year, was I finally got a company vehicle. After being in business for 15 years and giving budget and enterprise all my money, listen, I could have probably purchased a franchise with the money that I have given them in 15 years.
Right.
But just to be able to have my own van, before I even thought about, is it possible? I had
And
to
that's a
sit down
tax
with my
write-off.
bookkeeper
Yeah.
and do the numbers.
And that's a tax write-off.
Right. But I still needed to, hey, can I afford it?
Right.
Right? Is it the right time?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the right price point?
Right.
You can't make these decisions if you don't learn to look at the numbers. So I'm hoping that the viewers and the listeners understand that. Get you a quality bookkeeper, get you a quality accountant, and make sure they teach you. They need to be someone that's teachable or like to teach you about the numbers. It's so
Yes.
important. Yeah,
You
it
can't
changed
get past
my
the
life.
numbers. Either you're gonna pay somebody to do it for you, or you're gonna learn it yourself. But you
Right.
can't get around it. It's gonna be always some kind of tax implication or something that you need to know
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah,
running
you
your
gonna pay
business.
it now or you gonna pay it later. And
Exactly.
when you pay it later, you're gonna pay more money.
Yep.
So go ahead and pay it
It's
now.
a lot of people that say they're doing good and think they're doing good, but the numbers don't lie.
Oh no. No.
You go to the bank looking for a loan, the first thing they want to see is your numbers.
Is your
You can
number.
say that you're doing well, but they want to see the numbers.
Yep, that is so true. So for those aspiring to excel in financial planning and leadership, what are the key skills and qualities that they should focus on developing?
You definitely have to be meticulous,
Mm-hmm.
because with numbers, the slightest error can change everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have to be very accurate, or
Mm-hmm.
have someone on your team that's accurate. It's not something that you can rush through.
Right.
Um, you definitely have to uh, be abreast of all the latest and greatest tax laws,
Mm.
because that's another way that you can lose.
Yep.
You think you're doing something well, and then Uncle Sam doesn't agree with it, and by the time you find out, it's all kind of fees and everything to go with it to make sure you remember next time.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
That's a good one.
not knowing is not the answer.
Yeah. And I don't know doesn't work with them.
And document everything. It's very important that you have documented methods and procedures so that you can update them as needed. But just kind of going on the fly and doing what you
Mm-hmm.
heard and what somebody told you, that's going to disappear when you disappear. If this is something that you want to continue, that's a part of forecasting, having things documented so that you can reflect back on them and compare this time period to that time period. And if it's not documented either on somebody's computer or at a minimum written somewhere,
Right.
that's not a process that you can do.
Right.
As an auditor, that's low hanging fruit.
Yep.
The first thing we want to know is, let me see your documented methods and procedures. Oh, you don't
Yeah.
have it? Okay, that's the first thing right there that I'm gonna write down. You need
And,
to
and it
document.
roll after that.
Mm-hmm.
Because documentation beats conversation any day.
Yes. Yep.
Somebody told me that years ago, and it stuck with me.
Yep. Yep. You need to think about your successor. When you move up and move on, how's the person that comes behind you going to be able to pick up where you left off and do it at the same level that you did it,
Mm-hmm.
unless you document the level that you did it at?
That's true.
Or else every time somebody comes in, they're going to do it their way and it's going to change. And you'll definitely see I know you've been to a restaurant and you've come in and it's under new management, and it just doesn't, it's just not the same. That's what will happen with your
the
business.
food quality is different.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yep. It's like that with business as well in any industry. You can definitely tell the difference if things are not documented and carried on the same. Now you can come in and bring your own flair to it and make it better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you have to do it exactly the way that the previous management did it or the leadership did it, but I'm just saying you need to have some consistency in terms of how you do business.
Right. Now, see, I'm glad that you mentioned that because 2 years ago, I went to a Deco Summit in Miami, and we had a meeting with the CEO, and he taught us how to scale. He gave us some tips on how to scale your company.
Yes.
And at the bottom of the triangle, he drew a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom of the triangle, he told us to go back and look at all of the processes that we had in place, all of the softwares, where we were spending our money, and to see, really analyze if those purchases were worth it today. And if not, cancel it, find something better, whatever. But in the middle of the tier, before you got to the top, that's exactly what he said. He said, you have to document your processes. He said, because if you're trying at the top of the tier, you want to hire people, then you have to have your processes written so that when you hire them, it's not just you going off the top of your head and trying to tell them what to do. You have it written so that they can follow it step by step. And so many times as a small business owner, you're into doing the business and you know how to do it. But if someone comes to help you, they're at a loss. It's almost like you asking your grandmother how to make a red velvet cake, and she tells you a pinch of this and a pinch of that, and you're like, what is a pinch?
Yes.
And then you try to do the recipe and it doesn't work. It's the same thing. Right. So you're right. You do have to document. I have to work on that. That's going to be one of my goals for 2025. But I do want to scale, and I want to hire at least one part-time person. That's one of my goals for 2025. But I know I have to get the things in aligned and in place that you've been talking about today on this interview. So I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing your insights. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Is there any last minute things you want to tell the viewers and listeners? Any last minute tips, or what's the best way to get in contact with you? I have your information scrolling at the bottom.
I would just say, don't be afraid of the numbers. Live the numbers. Breathe the numbers. Be the numbers. Because that's the only way that you're going to really understand it, is just roll up your sleeves and really understand it. And the only way to understand it is to make it relatable to something that you can identify with.
That's true.
If you're still using checkbooks, just remember that whole process of receipts and recording items in the ledger and deducting things and using that checkbook to determine how much you're going to spend next time. That right there is budgeting and forecasting, because what you're going to do is you're going to determine how you're going to spend next Christmas based upon how you spent this Christmas.
That's right.
How you going to spend next paycheck versus based upon how you budgeted for this paycheck and these expenses and what you had left over, So that's all I would recommend, is that you don't be afraid of the numbers. Learn to love the numbers.
Because
if you don't love them, pay somebody else to love them.
But because the numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. If you're still scared, call me. My number and information is at the bottom.
I'm gonna put it at the bottom again.
Reach out to Marshall Consultant. I can help you out. I'll advise you for a fee.
That's right. That's right. Hey, we're gonna say it again. Either you pay now or you're gonna pay later. But either way, you're gonna pay. And it's an investment. We've got to learn how to invest wisely, right? In our growth, right? Invest in ourselves so that we can grow. And in everything that you talked about today, even when you touched on budgeting, It's the same thing, right? So whether it's personal or for a business, it's the same thing. The numbers don't lie, and you have to know your numbers and be comfortable with your numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm going to say to the viewers, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and join us next time for more perspectives and strategies to elevate your journey. Thank you for tuning in. Stay connected, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next episode. Good night.